People always said our house felt unsettling. Not haunted exactly, just wrong. The design made no sense. My grandfather built parts of it himself back in the 70s, adding rooms whenever he felt like it. So the whole place became this maze of narrow spaces and awkward hallways. The strangest part was the front entrance. Instead of walking straight to the front door, you had to go through this long covered walkway between two walls of the house. It was outside technically, but once you stepped into it, it felt enclosed, like entering a tunnel. My bedroom sat directly beside that walkway. From my window, I could see anyone standing at the front door without them noticing me unless they turned around. When I was younger, I used to spy on delivery drivers and neighbors through that window for fun. Eventually, it became a habit anytime someone rang the bell. The night everything happened was during the first week of June last year. My parents had gone out of state for several days to attend a wedding, leaving me alone in the house. Naturally, I invited my girlfriend, Madison, over almost immediately. We spent the first evening doing absolutely nothing special, ordering greasy food, floating in the pool until sunset, watching old horror movies, and drinking cheap wine. Neither of us even liked. Honestly, it was one of the best nights I'd had in months. The second night felt normal too. At first, sometime after midnight, I woke up to a loud scraping sound outside. At first, I thought I'd imagined it. Then it happened again. A harsh dragging noise against concrete. Madison stirred beside me while I sat upright listening. The sound came from the side driveway near the garage. My stepdad kept several large trash containers out there, and I figured some animal had tipped one over. Still, hearing movement outside when you know you're alone creates a different kind of fear. The house suddenly feels too large, too dark, too exposed. I told Madison to stay in bed while I checked outside. When I reached the front hallway, I switched on the exterior lights, but most of the driveway remained buried in darkness. The scraping immediately stopped. That should have been enough for me to leave it alone. Instead, I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, and stepped outside barefoot. Cold air hit instantly. Everything was silent. One trash bin lay sideways in the driveway with garbage scattered everywhere. The other bins were untouched. I remember feeling more irritated than nervous at that point. I picked up the trash, dragged the bins inside the garage, and scanned the darkness several times with my flashlight. Nothing. No raccoon, no stray dog, no movement. Eventually, I went back inside and locked the door. Madison was already half asleep when I returned to bed. A few minutes later, I started drifting off too. Then I heard it, tick, tick, a faint metallic tapping sound. At first, I thought it was part of a dream, but it kept repeating. Slow, rhythmic, tick, tick. I opened my eyes and stayed perfectly still. The room was silent except for that noise. Then I realized where it was coming from. Outside my bedroom window. Every muscle in my body locked up. Slowly, I slid out of bed and moved toward the curtain. I barely pulled it aside enough to peek through. Someone stood at the front entrance. A tall man facing the door. One finger tapping softly against the narrow glass panel beside it. Tick, tick. The strange part was that every light in the house was off. There was no reason for him to think anyone would answer. I leaned closer, trying to see his face more clearly. That's when he stopped tapping, and slowly turned his head toward my window. I dropped instantly below the frame. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. I stayed crouched there for several seconds, convincing myself he couldn't possibly have seen me. Eventually, curiosity won. I carefully rose back up and looked again. I nearly fell backward screaming. The man's face was inches from the glass. He was staring directly into the room. Even in the darkness, something about him looked horribly unnatural. His skin sagged loosely from his face, like soaked paper hanging from bone. His mouth hung partly open, revealing crooked dark teeth. But his eyes were the worst part. They didn't look human, not angry, not emotional, just empty, like deep shadows where eyes should have been. I screamed and stumbled backward into the bed hard enough to wake Madison instantly. I slammed the curtains shut, locked the bedroom door, and called 911 while Madison panicked beside me asking what happened. The police arrived surprisingly fast, but those 10 minutes felt endless. I kept waiting to hear footsteps inside the house, or tapping at the window again, but everything stayed quiet. The officers searched the property, the backyard, the garage, even the neighboring yards. Nothing, no footprints, no signs anyone had been there. One officer suggested it was probably a transient wandering through the neighborhood, maybe. But I know what I saw, and the story didn't end that night. Ever since then, I keep waking up around the same time every few nights. Usually sometime after 2 in the morning, and almost every time I hear the same sound outside the window. Tick, tick, soft, patient, like someone waiting to be invited inside.